bit
You're a
more
hard
directional.
icon. You're a hard icon.
Whatever that's bidirectional or I don't know. No, it's not.
Are you enjoying your flowers?
Yeah, as you saw, I put
I
them.
know.
I put them
Fit
next
right
to the
in.
real flowers.
Couldn't
or the
even
real
tell
plants.
which one were the Lego ones.
I know. My mom couldn't even tell when she saw them at first. She saw them and I showed them. I was like, "Look, these are flowers that Patrick and his mom got me." She's like, "What?"
Happy Mother's Day.
She's like,
You're listening to the Janchi Show, hosted by 3 Korean American adoptees diving headfirst into what it means to be adopted, Korean, American, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Nathan, Patrick, and KJ.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Janchi Show for another week. I am one of your hosts, Patrick Armstrong, here with both of my co-hosts, KJ Relke and Nathan Nowak. How are you boys doing today?
long pause.
I thought you were just going to say long, and I'm like, I don't know what that means.
I don't know.
I
I thought KJ looked pensive on that, so I was.
Oh,
For
I was
context-
actually
I was leaving it open for him. Yeah.
I was looking up at you because you're up here.
Oh,
So-
it looks like you're looking off to
Yeah,
at your screen, not
I
paying
know.
attention to us.
It's
did,
fine.
actually.
I'm
doing well.
No, I'm tired, and it feels like the morning, even though it's like basically noon my time. So, and I've been awake for many hours at this point. So,
Have you been working?
yeah, working right
That
now.
might be why you're tired. Well, for context, we literally just decided to jump on not
2
5
minutes ago.
to make sure that we had an intro where we were all together, unlike 2 episodes ago where none of us were here except for KJ.
KJ, and KJ.
KJ, and KJ, but this time it's KJ plus 2 other guys that are usually here. For those of you who may be joining us for the very first time, we are the Janchi Show because we are 3 Korean adoptees who like to share their experiences about that experience. And we also celebrate each other and our shared cultural heritage. And we do that by feasting on some snacks or some drinks or some other things at the end of the show. And in Korean, Janchi means to celebrate and or feast. I think it's just celebrate, but
It's
we
feast.
like to...
Feast.
Oh, it's the feast? Okay.
Yeah.
I like to be ambiguous with the meaning. That's my reclamation of Korean language is that I'm making up the meanings to the words.
No one knows. Who really knows what anything means in Korean?
Yeah.
I mean, everything, it's ambiguous. I kind of
Korean's
like
a
it,
made-up
though.
language, actually.
So does that
Like,
mean then that
Klingon.
Janchi noodles are feast noodles?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Huh. Still have not had them. So.
I'm not going to put that in. I'm not going to do the soundboard for this, but I just put that in there to
Wow.
cheer Nathan on.
Thank you.
Oh, for context. Let's not waste any time. Nathan, who are we talking to today? We have a guest this week.
Yes. So this has been one that we have been waiting to have on because of how do I explain it? A few months ago, we decided to open up our show to all adoptees, transnational, transracial adoptees, not just Korean adoptees. And so Anica Falcone-Juengert was one of our applicants. And so we reached out and she graciously was available last minute. And she's a Chinese adoptee and has an excellent story, something that I think some of us Korean adoptees also relate to on a parallel level. And I think that was really great to have her on and to start opening our show to a different, I don't know what you call it, different crowd, different demographic. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
More people.
More people.
Yeah,
More stories.
people with stories. Exactly.
More worldviews. We're excited. It was
We
really
are.
fantastic having Anica on.
Yes, we are excited. Anything, KJ, that you want to share with the listeners that you took away from the conversation before we dive in?
We really get into it, but she just has such a unique worldview. And I think hearing her talk about her life and what's shaped her really gave me some new revelations about how we describe ourselves, what forms us, what shapes us. Things that I probably knew at one point and then forgot. But yeah, it was just interesting to hear that and be able to like think through that for myself. So yeah, it was just a good conversation, and she has so many like points of intersectionality that make it really unique. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. It reminded me of our conversation where you brought up, being so hyper focused on one thing that we miss other things. I felt like when I was thinking about her story and listening to her share, that it reminded me how we can be in this community specifically so hyper focused on our own experiences, and how we navigate those that we miss other people's. And, that's one of the reasons we do the show. So excited to share this conversation with Anica Falcone-Juengert right now.
Welcome back to the Janchi Show. We are here for our interview, and a very special interview this time because all the times we've had special interviews. So let me just start over with that part. We are very honored to have you here, Anica. This is, I guess, we've opened our doors to all adoptees.
Would you say we've opened our borders?
Doors. I said doors.
Oh, there we go.
Wow. Very timely.
Yeah.
And actually, Anica, we met at
Con
last year.
Mm-hmm.
So and you applied to be on the show, but then we just at the time we were only accepting Korean adoptees. So now here you are, and we are very proud and happy to have you here. So with every show, I haven't done an intro in a while. Every show we usually start with your adoption story. So I'm excited to hear your adoption story. So if you'd like, you can tell us as little or as much as you'd like to.
As little as much as I'd like to. I've been thinking about this a lot, actually. It's interesting because last week I did a research interview, and I had 2 1 hour and a half sessions, and we basically just kind of went over my adoption story, but just went in detail and everything. So my brain is so fresh, I guess, which is very interesting. Okay, so it's interesting because my adoption story, I think, is actually kind of short, and then everything after that, there are just so many things that happened after my adoption that I think formed how I understand my adoptee identity, and then a bunch of other identities and life experiences. But to sum it up, I was part of the one-child policy, I'm assuming, where it was favorable to have, a son to pass on the family name. So I come from Tongling, Anhui Province, and I think I was adopted between 7 and 9 months old, and I moved to the Bay Area, Northern California, and I was adopted by 2 white adoptive moms, and I had an older adopted brother. And so I grew up living around there, around Asian and white folks. And then for college, where did I go? I went to Southern California in Los Angeles, and went back to the Bay Area for COVID. That was the time. But now I'm still living I went back to Southern California, so that's where I currently am. In terms of my adoption story, I hear a lot of both mostly Chinese and Korean American adoptees that talk about what it's like to grow up in surrounded by just white folks. And I think I was very lucky in the sense that I grew up in, I guess, enough of a diverse, but also around white and Asian culture. So yeah, I was around whiteness and white people, but also I grew up in a few households that were Asian. So with all the culture and stuff, I've never really felt like it wasn't mine, but it is and it isn't. But when it comes to reculturalization, or trying to find that cultural part of my adoptee side was never really a problem. And then my mom's, they shoved me into Chinese school when I was little. And I was like, I just don't want to do it. So I
don't
quit.
want more school right now.
No, yeah, I just quit. And then I quit everything else they tried to put me in. So,
No.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of that?
Of which? The school?
Yeah, just the
Mandarin's
use
hard.
it at all, or no? It's
No, Mandarin's hard. I just ended up taking Spanish. So it was Spanish, French, or Mandarin. And I was like, I'm going to do Spanish. because my brother did it, and then my cousin, I think she teaches ESL, and she did for a very long time. And then at my job now I speak Spanish, so that works out pretty well.
Nice.
Dang, I think there are a lot of other things I can say, but I just don't know where to go. Yeah,
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. That's again, like I said, we're always interviewing Korean adoptees, but this is a chance for us to listen to Chinese adoptee sides and to hear if there's similarities, parallels, and differences. And I think we've had a couple guests from California, and that I think that some of the things they've said is that there is kind of a diverse world there, but also still kind of being grown up in a white environment.
definitely.
And so I think it's very interesting because I always wondered what it would have been like to grow up in California since I lived there for so long. But
I have a question. Since it seems like you said, you were exposed and able to engage in culture a lot, so that didn't really make up a lot of your journey. When did or what prompted you to start exploring or navigating your adoptee identity a little bit more?
Definitely college. I feel like I hear that a lot from people. I knew it was interesting because culturally, I understood and was told, like, you are our Chinese daughter. I was like, okay. So that was never like a question. I always knew I was adopted. Like, I had 2 moms. They taught very early. I was just like, people have a mom and a dad. And I was like, okay, how are babies born? And then they straight up told me and my brother were like, oh. And also, like, we were Asian, they were white. We were like, okay, you're 2 women.
Yeah.
We're a different race. This isn't how things work. So I always knew. But I don't think I really explored it that much. I was very angry as a kid. Because I knew that they weren't my moms were not my quote unquote real parents. But when it came to like exploring, I never really did until college. And that's, I think, when I first watched One Child Nation. It's a documentary made by not an adoptee, but a woman from China, I think, who could have been she was impacted by the one child policy. She had a younger brother. And it was kind of interesting to be like, oh, she could have been, one of the daughters that was taken. And I started looking. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Really quickly, as Nathan said, we usually talk to Korean adoptees, and you've mentioned it twice. So I was hoping you could give our listeners just a really quick definition of what the one-child policy is. Just because I don't know who may know or not know. And myself, I feel like I know, but I may not know, and I don't want to explain it incorrectly. So,
honestly, the most I know from it is from the documentary One Child Nation, where there's a policy, I think in the 70s or 80s, that was enacted, where there was so much overpopulation in China that the government had to enforce like only having one child. So to pass on the family name, right, it was given to the son. So it was more favorable to get rid of all the girls. So when it comes to like seeing Chinese adoptees, you see most of them, I feel like the oldest I've seen are like maybe their 30s. And they're all like, there are a lot of girls out there because we weren't the ones who were going to pass on the name. So I think if that explains the policy, that's what I know.
Awesome.
Is it still around?
So I think in 2015 there was the 2-child policy because they realized, oh snap, maybe we should stop
shipping girls out. Yeah,
that too. But I think they saw a trend also in the population, but I'm not sure. I don't know if it's still going. It was so interesting to see the propaganda. It was so scary. Like, it's so just having one child. The One Child Nation shows like all of the propaganda so well. It's freaky deaky. And then they, at the very end, it's very interesting because it says, oh, now you can have 2. Like 2 is the desirable amount. And it's just so crazy because you see, like, I think the producer's grandfather, like, because he had to like live and see like the overpopulation, and then he saw the propaganda with the one child policy, then all of a sudden it's 2 at the very end of the thing, and you're like,
A whole new set of things. Well, I appreciate you defining that for our audience, and I apologize for interrupting. I just wanted to pop in with that really quickly. And now I don't remember where I interrupted you at. In college, after having watched One Child Nation. Yes, that's what it was.
It was really interesting because I was like, okay, there's a whole, like, yes, I am one person and this is my unique story with the one child policy, but if you take multiple, you start seeing patterns. And I was taking sociology at the time and my mind was expanding, like, I don't know, like it was a sponge soaking in everything. And so it's really interesting for me, and still now, to view like the individual or the concept of what it means to be an individual person. Because if you look at, one story, nothing is like that story. But if you piece together a bunch, you start seeing patterns. So then I found someone who was also, I don't know if she was internationally adopted, but she was a transracial adoptee, and she was doing her senior project on her adoption, but also like adoption in general. And I was like, you could research yourself, or like you could do that. Like, that's cool.
And just finding about this now?
Yeah. And then, so I got a fellowship, and I never finished because I left school during COVID. And I still don't have my bachelor's degree, which I think is a very interesting place to be in right now. What is it? So I made my research project at the time. My question was, how do transracial adoptees show their identity on social media? And that was during Black Lives Matter. And that was when everything was online. And that was when I was like, really, like, it was a very self-reflective time. And I was like, okay, there has to be some way to make my research like actionable, or like it has to connect to this because things are happening, the world is happening.
Right.
And it was really interesting because I had this whole identity thing, man. What was I doing? I think I first asked like one of my friends, like, why is it important for me to like identify as an adoptee? And then where do I fit as an adoptee also in relation to...
That's a great question. Holy cow.
This social movement. Like, okay, as an adoptee, that was the only thing I did, like as an adoptee. But I think at the same time, I was like, okay, how do I do it as an Asian American adoptee? Like that's specific. Like I have to, and I was like, it's like Shrek and the onions and layers. I kept adding the layers. I was like, okay, wait. So there's Asian American, but in certain spaces, what does it mean for me to be like a transracial Asian American adoptee in relation to my project, in relation to this movement? And I was like, wait, okay, there's more. I was like, okay, what does it mean for me to be a queer transracial adoptee in relation to whatever? And I was like, damn. And I think it's interesting. Well, you mentioned Queer Eye, but I also watched a documentary, Disclosure, which talks about the history of transgender folks in media. And after I watched it, I cried. There was just so much. There's so much in that. I just don't know how to say it. But when I watched it, I looked over at my friend and I was like, am I the gay friend? Am I the queer friend? She's like, no, you're just a friend. And I was like, oh, I got a lot of work to do. So where I'm at, like when talking about trying to circle back, finding out like, why is my adoptee identity important? I was like, okay, it's not just this. It's like this in combination with the intersectional identities that you can't see. So it depends on the space. Sometimes I do say I'm international. Sometimes I do say I'm Chinese. But most of the time I identify as a queer transracial adoptee because it's broad enough to encompass the queerness. There are specific identities that identify with the queer community, which is pansexual and demisexual. They usually say queer. And then transracial adoptee because I think the experience of a transracial adoptee is having white adoptive parents. And I feel like that's just there's so much there. And I think it encompasses a lot. And that's what I want to do in terms of like advocating for those identities and myself, I guess, in my story.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. We just talked about the power in being able to name what you are about and who you represent. And I love the idea of claiming it as, particularly as transracial adoptees, because like it is more broadly associative than just being a Korean adoptee or an Asian adoptee specifically. And at the end of the day, that's fine. If that's who you're advocating for and you're working within. Like this podcast has historically been a Korean adoptee one, and now we're broaching out into more broadly Asian American adoptees. And you know, we can start to say that now as we have more of those voices on, and we do that work to bring that in. And I think there's also that power in being able to specifically name those broad intersections that you are wanting to work within. And so I like the way that you named that. You mentioned how when you started to have conversations with other adoptees, like when you first started to interrogate your own story, you're like, okay, this is a thing that I experienced. And then you were like, you talk to other people and you're like, oh, I'm starting to see patterns here.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's really interesting. And I wanted to ask you what patterns you've seen. Because I think, as we have started to tell stories and done now 130 episodes, like that's what we have seen. Like all of our stories, like you said, very individual, all of each our own. But there are themes and through lines that run through that connect us and make our experiences resonant. So I was wondering what patterns that you have seen.
Generally, I've seen that a lot of people seem interested in learning about their birth culture, which is, I mean, that's where we were born. But it's there's a lot of growing up around white standards or white people or both, and then figuring out, okay, this is what it means for me to be either like Chinese, Korean, whatever. And then I don't know. I personally want to see it move more beyond that, because that's what I also saw in research, where it was a lot about just exploring the culture, which I think I don't think much of it because I didn't have to do it like that. But that's where a lot of research is and stays. And that's what I also see in how people talk about their stories, because they're trying to process like, oh, dang, like, these are all these things I could have had. It's a loss.
Right.
It's, you know.
Yes.
And there's a lot of the exploration of that nuance and loss. I have to say, I see a lot of.
I think you view it through such an interesting lens of having already been culturalized and racialized, and not, or maybe not, but like having more of that experience than a lot of transracial adoptees do. And then you come to this work and you see the community, and you're like, you see so much of that. Because I'm like, I fall into that group that you're observing that is like needing that cultural, like trying to uncover that loss. I'm like, where is it? And like, that's who you're viewing. And I think that's so interesting, because I feel like that's not a perspective that we hear from a lot in the community, and specifically transracial adoptees.
Following up on that.
Go ahead.
Well, I had a question, because you mentioned like growing up in Southern California, other SC, Southern California, and then the Bay Area, and then back to Southern California, and being like racialized in like pretty diverse white or Asian spaces. Was your / is your experience as like an Asian American, like broadly Asian American, is it specific to Chinese culture at all? Like, because I'm like in those areas, I feel like it could be kind of like that kind of hodgepodge Asian American culture, and it totally could be like deeply Chinese American culture.
Other than Chinese school, I guess.
No one has asked me that question. No one has asked me that question. I think that's really cool. I grew up, I think it's a mix, like Asian American, because I grew up, I mean, I had friends that were Chinese. I had Chinese parents, so I feel like I got the secondhand, like, do well in school, we kind of have they had the immigrant experience. So like I kind of got waves of it. Like I wasn't their kid, but like they treated me like the kid. So definitely the Chinese American one. I had sort of a Filipino one, and then a Laos like influence. But then I also grew up with this random, like a friend who spoke French at home with her mom. Like they were white and French, and so I just grew up around that. I think it's mainly yeah, like Chinese. I don't think I got a lot of like Vietnamese or Japanese or any others. Not Pacific Islanders, I don't think. But I was around the food, I think.
Yeah.
That's like the best part.
Well, and I think it's interesting too, because like when I hear people talk about, especially like second gen and on Asian Americans, it's usually like, oh yeah, like this culture, like this is what you want to order from like these foods, or like, oh, this is like their maybe Lunar New Year tradition as opposed to ours, or like, oh, we don't celebrate Lunar New Year, with like New Year's is a big day for us in our culture, like, but there's kind of like a more general awareness, maybe in the same sense that like white people have a general awareness of like Italian and Irish and English, you know what I mean? Like those kinds of things, but it's not like super specific. Whereas like, if you were raised in a heavily Chinese American influence, and you might have like really hyper specific references like and touch points with that culture, you know? So that, I guess that's what I ask is like, do you think of yourself as like, it sounds like from your experience, you might think of yourself as more just kind of like a global citizen, and just be like, I don't know, there's just like a lot of people in my life, and so I just enjoy being a part of all of it. Versus like for me, like when I grew up, I consider myself pretty globalized, and I knew I was looking for something specifically Korean. Like that was important to me, even while now I'm like, it'd be nice, but I'm also like trying to learn 4 other languages apparently, you know what I mean? So but I think that shapes some of those conversations and some of those ways that we wrestle with our identities and the ways that we choose to enter into those intersectionalities. Like I was raised ethnically Korean and then kind of backed into being Asian American. And it sounded like maybe you were raised as like Asian American plus Chinese American on the side, some of those kinds of things.
I mean, I think it also helped in the sense of my moms were lesbians and I was also queer. So when it comes to needing to a certain extent come to terms with ourselves, like as a queer person, because everything we see is like heterosexual, heteronormative, whatever. And then I think if you like choosing to openly identify first as an adoptee and as queer, the first thing you see, for me, you're not going to see that. You're going to see an Asian American or like an Asian woman appearing person. So definitely being queer and adopted have influenced like so much, because like people would come up and be like, oh, you have a mom and a dad, and in my head I'm like, my family, what is that? Like,
yeah, like, what's a dad? I don't get it. Yeah. No, and that was a question that I wanted to ask you too, because like I think it's unique that like in school you've done so much research and thinking about yourself in the time that it was in like the air, like all of those things, and then on top of that, having it was a queer sexuality, and your mom's obviously having like a queer sexuality, both being lesbian. Like, what was the conversation or training? Not that it would have been like an explicit, like usually you're talking about your identity, but like, have your moms been supportive and been helpful in this identity process as you explore like not the queer part, but like kind of the Asian adoptee place? Has that been like, it's a different thing, whatever?
This is where it gets kind of interesting, because yes, you have like your social identities, but also I think experiences are also identities in the sense. So, in accepting of my queer identity. So, one of my moms passed away when I was 11. So all my memories and stuff, and when it comes to like exploring adoptee stuff, I don't remember with her. And then, interestingly enough, I'm in no contact with my surviving mother at the moment, and it's been about coming on 2 years. And it's interesting because when I started my research, I was living under her roof, and it was also during the rise of Asian hate. That caused a lot of tension, because So I didn't get a chance to talk to her about how I felt about exploring my adoptee identity. I think after my brain kind of started transforming, I'll say. I was going to say something else and I cut myself off. But, oh yeah, okay. So during Black Lives Matter, we sent each other articles. It was not our experience. And so we were like trying to understand an experience that wasn't ours. Great. Rise of Asian hate. A little different. She'd send me articles and I'd be like, we can't analyze this the same way. Because I saw posts that were like, our adoptive parents are the perpetrators, or they look like the perpetrators, and we're the ones who are being attacked. And I felt relatively safe where I was at. But when I talked to my Asian friends, they're like, I'm scared for my family. And I was like, oh shit. I was like,
should I be scared for myself?
Scared for myself, but I was like, but I'm not worried about my mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was just like absorbing so much information, seeing all the attacks, seeing how like Asian Americans were like trying to show up for one another. And I was just there like, this is so weird. And then my mom sending me this news article and I'm like, but then she didn't talk to me about it. She would just send me the articles. And I'd be like, this feels a little weird.
So when you were sending each other articles about like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, like that kind of stuff, and in that like particular wave of the Black Lives Matter movement in the public conscious, was there further dialogue between you two?
Yeah, she was like human resources and DEI person, so she was trying to understand, like as a white person, like that was great, I guess. But when it came to like me,
it's so interesting.
But she showed me like and told me like, you are Chinese, you are my Chinese daughter.
Right.
Like, she was not colorblind, and I think she was like, I describe her as like, I guess like the best like liberal like white lesbian Jewish advocate, But when it came to like her own daughter, there's a blockage with that. I described it very well. There's a poem somewhere, but she has bumper sticker privilege, where she had a Biden-Harris bumper sticker on her car. She's retired to Texas now, and so we were talking about it when we were still talking. She was so bummed. She was like, I gotta take the sticker off my car. And I looked at her and I was like, Mom, like, you can take the sticker off your car. Like, the first thing people are gonna see is like a white old lady, like, but like they're not gonna see that you support like these are your political views, or you're actually Jewish, or like any of this stuff. But they like Jewish folks and also like queer people have to go through some, not they have to, but they experience discrimination in a certain way. But as a white woman, she doesn't have to tell people she is, and she could take the bumper sticker off.
Right.
I can't take off that I'm Asian American, like, unless I want to like dye my hair and like change my face, or so that contributes to being in no contact.
That's that thing with like the familial tie or bond or whatever, saviorism if you want to call it, but like it puts up that blinder of where we only see you. Like, I don't see an Asian person, I just see my son, you know what I mean? Like, I just see my kid, and it's like, okay, I get that, but also you have to understand that these other people, they don't see that.
They really don't.
They just see the Asian person, like, and there's like that dissonance like is so hard to cut through because of quote unquote love, or however you want to frame it. And I'm not like, I have a good relationship with my family, but it's still like, that's still a rare bridge that we have to cross, and we've had to cross numerous times, of just the understanding that while your love is reciprocated and I appreciate it, it doesn't protect me from the racism, it doesn't protect me from the violence or the hate or the discrimination or whatever it is. Like, that's great, but it's not an actual shield. It doesn't, like, that support is great, but it's not like, it won't save me from somebody pushing me out in front of a train or stalking me back into my apartment and murdering me. You know what I mean? Like it goes beyond that. And if we can't see beyond that, then there's a part of our humanity that's getting lost in this attempt of translation of this experience. So I don't know. I just
and it
got
must
really
be
fired
hard
up
for you too, because like you and I assume your mother are both like heteronormative presenting, and you you had these conversations about race when it was towards Black people, and so there's like two areas where you're like we don't have to be loud about being queer. We don't have to be, whatever. Like we could get away with some things, and then to not have that same type of like learning mentality, maybe support mentality, whatever. When it comes to your personal experience, has to be pretty jarring, right? Like because you've you had those things. Like I'm sure that your moms would have been able to talk to you. Like I mean, I would hope like there might have been maybe some nerves, but like hope that if there was like a coming out moment for you, like and your sexuality, that would have been like not a big deal because of your family, or like pretty downplayed, But then like to be like, do I have to come out as Asian American to my mom? Like, is that a thing?
Because they had more of a connection on that topic or experience.
I feel like I never answered that question, KJ. I feel bad now. Of the supporting of my queer identity. No, because you don't have to come out to queer parent, or like you don't come out, you're straight. You're not like, you just bring someone home, right?
Right. Sure. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's like it's probably
no,
nothing.
yeah.
I don't know.
I didn't have any, at least for the queer identity, nothing.
Yeah.
For adoptees. I mean, we knew. It was an open conversation all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's what I mean is like, I think it's hard because like the same, like your moms are like, you're Chinese, and like my parents are like, you're Korean. Like it's very easy for everyone to get behind. But that specific like tint of Asian American is like, that's a whole other level that I think is can be hard for some people to access. And I think that's where like some of that like that cognitive dissonance can come into play. Probably sounds like for your mom and certainly for you on the receiving end of that. Be like, we had all these good conversations and now we're not even talking. Like, what up?
I mean, something that you just made me think of when you said that is that Asian American is inherently a political term that came to be when our parents were probably in their formative years, and then they adopted, and then they went through the process of adopting, in the 80s, 90s, 70s, 80s, 90s, with that thought in mind and where that dissonance might come from. All right, that's a whole nother episode. We got to dig into that.
Yeah, you just reread Making of Asian America, right? So you're
that's
right.
I'm like, okay, all right, I see these dots now.
Welcome to my brain hole. That's for another episode. Yeah, no, thank you for answering my questions, and I hope that they weren't ham-fisted.
I love your questions.
Yeah. So during these times, a lot of our guests have talked about during COVID, and they've looked for community, they've looked for online locations for discussions, familiarity, just connection. Is that what you did? Did you find a Chinese adoptee community? Because I would have no clue about any of those. I mean, I know that Khan now accepts all transracial adoptees or domestic adoptees and things like that now too. So, which I think is great. But what did you find?
100%. I was like, I didn't grow up with other adoptees, so it was interesting. I never had an adoptee community. And that's what I started looking for when I was doing my research and online. And so right now, I currently volunteer for CCI, which is China's Children's International. And I volunteer for CON, for Korean Americans. I specifically went to CON first because it was Korean adoptees and it wasn't Chinese. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to have to like deal with any of my problems. I specifically, like I knew I would like encounter like adoptees and stuff. But I'm like, this is the Korean American adoptee experience. This isn't the Chinese one. So I'm going to give myself some distance. But yeah, then I was joined like Facebook groups and stuff. And eventually got to be a volunteer for China's Children's International. And I still didn't feel really connected, which was really interesting because it was I feel like single faceted, because it was about being an adoptee. And I was first, when I was doing research, I looked into adoptee activists, and I thought that was really cool. But then I realized, like, in my life, there was, you know, the intersectional identities, but also the life experiences. So since a lot of Chinese adoptees are like 30s and younger, they're still living at home, or like we're in our 20s or like younger, you know, they're still living at home and they're with their parents. And I'm out here not talking to my not talking to my mom, and also experiencing the loss of, like, I lost my biological parents, I lost an adoptive parent, and I don't even know like adults who have lost their parents yet. Like, I've only just recently,
Yep.
I think I have definitely one person who just lost their mother like in the last year. But also, I don't know many people who like cut off their families either. I do know one adoptee, who actually, I think she did it around the same time I did, which was very interesting. But she has like a whole ass family too, so she had to consider different things when I had to consider myself. So in trying to find adoptee community and like connection, I showed up in the spaces and they were either like straight or heteronormative, and I'm like, okay, or, you know, they're still living at home, and the way in which they understand family and being financially dependent is so different than paying your own bills, which you guys probably know. But like the types of conversations they were having, they're about culture or like other things, but even if they were, I think, a bit more like intense or like talking about loss or like nuance and stuff, they're still coming from a very, just having different experiences than I did. And I just didn't feel like I found many. I think I have one now a little bit, in BIPOC adoptees, which I think Patrick, you kind of know about. Because
wait, is that like a group beyond just like generally like we are all BIPOC adoptees? That's like a specific group? Okay, cool.
Right now,
I was like, do you mean like just
you're like just BIPOC adoptees?
just BIPOC adoptees in general.
I was like, is that like the Janchi Show : a group of BIPOC adoptees? Like,
no, I think right now they were trying to become a nonprofit. Either they are in the process of becoming actually like a for-profit like entity. I found them when they were forming like a year ago, right? And I guess one of the founders, Liana, she's great. Love her. She got so enthusiastic with me, and we just started like this note together, and we just kept talking, and then she invited me to an in-person event in Portland, Oregon a few months ago, and it was for BIPOC adoptees and had speakers. I was a speaker. Woo, that was cool. Where like it was for Oregon, so I guess Oregon's really white. I have a very skewed version of Oregon now. It looks very Asian American to me because that's where a lot of people showed up. But then there was like a specific space for transracial adoptees to speak. And that's where I think I found an adoptee space that it's most welcoming to me, because the BIPOC experience, or like people of color, it's sad because the world just is not made for us. But like, and they were older too. So I'm like talking to adults. I've always gravitated towards talking to people who are older than me. And I think that's because I just experienced so much shit.
A lot of life. You're like, I need someone who's experienced as much life as me. And usually that happens the more you age. Well, and that's great. I'm so glad that you found that. And I love that you were able to name like and be aware of my experiences make it difficult for me to lean into certain experiential groups, whether that's just being a Chinese adoptee or just being an Asian adoptee or just being a queer adoptee or just being all of those things without the adoptee part, or you know what I mean? Like those kinds of things. Like I think that that's important. And I think that that's what we found as we kind of like had our big like adoptee revelation was we were like, okay, so we went for all these groups and we were like, I mean, they're like helpful, but like not quite helpful. And listening to you talk about your experience with other Chinese adoptees really made me think about, part of it, like for me, was that like a lot of Korean adoptee spaces that I found were actually too old. Like there was like too much history and like it just like wasn't quite. And so that like lining up of experiences, not just of identities, but of experiences is really helpful for me to be like, Oh yeah, I think that's why, like we always need to be talking about it and always need to be having those conversations. And I think it's great that you were able to find some community that was like, this matches enough of my intersectional identities and my life experience that it can begin to hopefully be a safe space for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't name the experience part enough in that conversation of being like, that's something that also affects the way I navigate my identities and the way I navigate the world. So I do appreciate you naming that, because it's so easy for us to just fall into this post-apocalypse like mindset of like, oh, I'm changed now, thinking about my identity differently, so like I can just be friends or be in community with everyone.
Yeah.
And when really it's like, not that we're splitting ourselves into different groups intentionally or like because we want to. It's literally because I've experienced these things differently than you have. Or especially if you inhabit multiple intersectional identities, like we can't start, if I don't inhabit those, I can't sit here and be like, oh, I understand that and I get it. I'm like, totally. Yeah, I totally resonate with that. I can completely agree with what you're saying or whatever it is, like that's just not the case, because I don't know what that is. Like I don't know what it's like, and I can't define that way. So we have to be able to take those things into account just as much as our identities and just as much as anything else. So yeah, I do appreciate you naming that.
I have another question, because I think that this probably plays into what you were talking about. You've mentioned that your mom, at least one of your moms, is Jewish.
Yes.
And in your form, you mentioned that you were raised Jewish. How has that been in terms of, I mean, moving through the world, but specifically in your intersectional identities, trying to find those safe spaces? Because I imagine, I know from experience, but like I imagine that a lot of adoptee groups that you found were also very Christian.
Yeah, okay.
So are you currently religious? Like, what's your relationship to religion, to Jewishness, Jewish culture, I guess? Yeah, all those kinds of things.
I'm figuring it out. I think
that's a great answer.
I mean, I was figuring it out before. I think more recently, because I got into a relationship as I was leaving my mom's house, and she grew up Catholic, Mexican American Catholic, like straight up. And so like we've experienced like 2 holiday seasons and stuff together. And usually, even when I was growing up, I was like, whenever it was Christmas, I was like, oh, I'm Jewish. Just because it's like the another story. I think like I didn't have a bat mitzvah. I didn't get super into it, but like I'd go to Saturday school for Jewish people. I don't know. So I grew up around Hebrew. I grew up around like celebrating, oh God, the things. And now
the holidays.
I forget which. I know the names and I don't want to butcher them. But now like moving out and trying to understand, like I did things and went to things because like my mom made me, right? But I think even when I went to those things, like we went together, but then we were separated. She went to her like adult thing. I went to the kid thing. And I never really, I think, felt tethered to the religion and faith practice. But it like informs how I show up, because it's what I'm used to. I like when I see anti-Semitic things, and like when I know like Jewish things, like it's on my radar, and then like I sometimes bring stuff up to people because they just don't know if people are Jewish or not, or like what's going on.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, I think practicing now, I've had a few like courses on Buddhism, and I think that's been the most faith spiritual based thing that I've gravitated towards the most. I know people have taken like religious studies courses and been like, oh, they're all the same, which I kind of want to do because I want to understand as much as possible. But I think Buddhism has been most interesting to me. I don't know much about it. I feel like I've done, I guess, I feel like I've experienced quote unquote like successful meditation when it's been led by someone else. I don't think I've ever really done it by myself. But I think I really know my body and mind pretty well is from my like 10 years of experience of martial arts, because of our we have for our black belt test, it's supposed to be like 3 hours of like nonstop movement. And for the first like 5 years, I was like a preteen teenager, like, you know, doing a sport. But definitely for the black belt test, like the test itself is the formatting, the 8 pages of like each page has like 10, 20 techniques, and then however many kata. You have to physically, you know, be in your best shape, but also in your mind. So I think that has a really big impact also on like mind, body, spiritual.
Yeah.
Whoosh.
Yeah. No, I
That's not
like
Jewish.
Buddhism as well. My wedding was actually half Buddhist.
Oh,
It
that's
was a half
sweet.
Buddhist, half Christian wedding. Yeah. And I would love to learn more about it as well.
That's something that I'm probably gonna keep exploring as holidays keep coming around, and also trying to define like what does it mean for me to celebrate these things around these times with my partner, with what I've grown up with, what she's grown up with, and then what my friends do. We're all, because we all come from different backgrounds, and what's important to us, does it come from our parents? Does it come from us? Does it come from our cultures? Like,
Right.
we don't know, and then we keep we're figuring it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the beautiful thing about community is navigating that stuff. I think, well, because I say that because I think navigating your identity is so personal. It's so like individual journey, and to do that with other people who are also navigating what it means to be in their identities is just like, oh shit, okay, I'm not alone in this, because it's just so heavy, and it's just like it can knock you down, and it can be really hard to get back up. And if you don't have people around you who are not only going through that but get it and like meet you with empathy instead of like sympathy, and like lift you up with them, or come down and meet you and like, okay, here we go, and we'll come back up together. Like that's the beautiful thing about it. And I love that you have like people around you who are figuring it out together. It makes me smile. I think I'm just feeling super emotional from Queer Eye, but I'm just like, that made me super happy just to hear you say that. Yeah.
I started gravitating towards, I think, these, like, surrounding myself with these types of people. I was, you know, in college having like career panels and stuff during COVID, and this one person was like, what did she say? She was like, just find like kind of what you want to do and like move in the direction of that. And I started following a lot of people on social media because I felt like I had to diversify my perspectives. But then I realized, like, okay, you're not going to vibe with everybody. Don't just follow someone because they're Asian American. Don't just follow someone because they're... And then I felt kind of guilty because I was like, I'm going to follow this indigenous person to broaden my perspective. And then I was like, but I actually don't totally resonate with this person. Like, it's just a person.
Yeah. I mean, you're allowed to not like people.
I've learned that. I think before I was like, yes, everywhere, everything. Give me all the perspectives. And then I was like, no, I can't do that.
Okay. So, Anica, what are the next steps for you in your exploration of adoption of Chinese adoptees, of all trans, racial adoptee spaces? I mean, the communities. What are you looking for?
Also, no further steps is an acceptable answer.
Yes, exactly.
I was like,
what are you looking or not
I'm on
looking
pause
for?
a minute.
Well, it's. I think I see a lot of people. I see a lot of adults who are like in their lives who are like, this is my job, and this is what I really like to do, and they're separate. I'm like, okay, that's me right now. Because I only have a high school diploma. I have like maybe like 60 college credits. Can't really, like, not even 2 years of office experience. I'm a baby. But I think my future is some type of organizing. It would be nice if it's around identity, organizing of people and community coalition building. That's very vague, but I think with BIPOC adoptees, whether it be a job, whether it be volunteer, I really liked seeing how the event in Portland, Oregon happened, because everyone who I heard from, they were like, I just heard about it from either Tom or Liana, like these two people. And I was like, okay,
Yep.
so I want to be these two people.
Yeah, manifest that.
And I know both of them, they're great, they're amazing. Like, I think that's what I want to do. And there's BIPOC adoptees that's doing it. I want to be able to give people the space to feel like they can be messy and like try to start understanding like what matters to them. I was given that space, I think, with my martial arts instructor that I had when I was going for my black belt. But then I found that in just people. When I started talking to people, I started networking super hard in higher education. And I met, adoptee researchers, some who have been on the podcast. I met like just people of color, women of color who are like, I never saw myself here. I now want to give that space to other people. That's what I want to do. Don't know how all of it's going to happen. It would be nice to get paid for it. That's pretty cool.
We trying to make it happen. To make it happen. I love it. I absolutely love it. Supporting you and rooting for you, and however I personally and hopefully the show can help make that happen. I think that's 100% what we need, and that's where my motion is going as well. Love Liana. Had a great conversation with her a couple weeks ago, and excited to work with her on some stuff. Love what BIPOC Adoptees is doing. So if you're involved, I know it's going to be great.
I think it's going to be really, really cool.
Yeah.
I've never seen something like the BIPOC Adoptees. I've never seen something, I think, that's ongoing, because there's the Adoptee series. There's always, something is made. Yay. But it wants to be an ongoing educational aspect of it. And then the community that she's trying to grow from it right now, Discord. I don't know how to use Discord, but the idea of like
me neither.
Being able to connect with people virtually, but also try to do things in person, and then just keep meeting, keep creating spaces, keep talking, like keep building these relationships. But we're all like adults, like all over the place, and then you have to like schedule in your times to talk to people. But I think it's going to be sustainable because it's all around community building, relationships, and kind of just exploration and being your best self with other people.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm excited for it.
Very well
Anica, but we're gonna cut to a food, which I'm excited to get to. But before we do that, if people vibe with you, if you're like, oh man, Anica, I want to talk to her more, I want to hire her for work, I want to whatever it is. Where can people find you and connect?
I feel you.
I'm mostly, you can find me on Instagram. My first name Anica, ANICAF_J. I guess you can probably find my TikTok through that, but I'm public. Like the way I approach Instagram also changed during Black Lives Matter. So I mean, you can stalk me and figure it out, but it's a very self-reflective space for me.
Sure.
Because like the way people came at each other in regards to how they posted on social media in 2020, I was like, I didn't feel pressured by it, but I was like, I know I don't want my platform, even if it's just a few people, to be, just to show. I mean, I want to show joy in myself, but also I think I wanted to use it as a space to process. So I think my Instagram is a very self-reflective space, and it's public, so you can learn a lot about me if you want to learn more.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll have that linked in the show notes, but that's Anica F_J on Instagram, and maybe on TikTok if you're feeling it.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break. There is that. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to jump into a snack, I think. I never know with these things. Here we go. All right.
We good.
They're good. I have not actually translated any of this into. Welcome back to the Janchi Show. Time to eat. We just had a great interview with Anica Falcone-Juengert. Thank you so much for all of that. And now we shall snack. And I'm excited because it is a snack that it says product of China. And so that's one of the things that we did say that we wanted to try and branch out away from the Korean snacks. I joke every time that I'm running out of Korean snacks to buy too, but I always see like these really good looking snacks and I go, oh, I want to get that. And then it goes product of Taiwan or product of China. And it's like, oh, well, we're trying to keep it to Korean. But now
it deserves to be on our show.
It deserves to be on this for you.
Because it says product of China.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm furious that you said that.
And as Google Translate told me,
What a terrible reason.
"Chifan, which means hopefully let's eat. I don't know. That's me listening to Google Translate say it. So come out.
No,
I like that.
Chinese.
take
I
off
like
the
that.
stickers like made in China.
yeah,
like
I know.
toys,
Right?
I can put them on me.
We've said things like that too with the made in Korea stickers.
We need to
Oh.
have like a whole
There's a
line of
sticker.
shirts that just says
Yeah,
Best
this is
before
made in
July
Korea.
8th, 2023.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
Hooray.
we're good.
Uh,
So
Nice.
we're good still.
Of course, I can't read any Hangul, and I definitely can't read any Mandarin. So the English on the back of this Lay's potato chip says lemon, hot, and sour. And
artificial chicken foot flavor.
chicken foot flavor. Yeah,
Chicken feet are
Chicken
good.
feet.
I know. Hey. And it's lemon, hot, and sour. So I don't know.
Lemon hot and sour. Okay.
It looks like it's spicy because on the front of the thing, it's just these wavy chips that have these giant like chili peppers flying out of
A
it.
lot of
Doesn't look
lemon.
spicy though.
A lot of lemon. Not
A lot
very
of
much
lemon. That's
spice.
what you're getting. Lemon forward.
I don't know if I like it. And I like chips.
Ooh, I like the smell. I mean, it's
I can't tell.
What?
Too much lemon?
What?
Not enough balance in the
What
heat?
just happened?
It just
yeah. I
for
was
me
gonna
it's
say
a
the
very
first
plain chip.
Plain
first thing
chip.
is like
Okay.
very
With
little
too much
spice.
There's like a hint
actually.
of lemon for me, but
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
plain chip.
I just feel like I'm only tasting lemon and just chip.
I tasted
That's
Yeah.
not a
lemon
good balance of this
and I
hot.
smelled chicken broth.
Chicken feet.
Mm.
No,
smell
just
chicken
chicken
feet?
broth. I mean, maybe
It
chicken
No.
feet,
smells
but
like faint
chicken
barbecue to
broth.
me.
Yeah, it kind of has a little barbecue-ish like hint to it.
Yeah, but I can only taste the lemon. That's
Yeah.
it.
There's a little bit of spice.
And a little sour. I can see where they get the sour. It's just the vinegar.
I mean, a lemon is sour, so that makes sense.
But it's definitely a lot milder than I expected it from the front with
Yeah.
all the chilies flying out of the photo.
They really built it up.
Yeah. I like the package though. It's very modern.
Yeah.
It's Lay's. Clearly a Lay's snack. Package.
The
You know,
hot pepper on
not
the-
The
mad
more
about
I
it.
eat, though, the more I'm enjoying it.
It's definitely not bad.
I wanted
don't
to
think I've
complain more,
Definitely
but
not
the,
bad.
the third one has been okay. That was okay.
That's funny.
I mean,
It is
I know
making me
this is
want
a-
water.
this is going to cause controversy, but I actually like it.
Water.
I'm going to say I like it better than shrimp chips.
Really?
What?
Yeah. Sorry.
Wow.
All
I
right,
knew that was
the
gonna
show
cause-
is the show is
That's-
over.
That's controversy.
Not today.
Sorry.
We
Show's
canceled.
over.
See you never.
Ugh. How
I'm,
dare you?
I'm more of a spicy guy, and I do love lemon. So
How dare you?
But it's not
That's
Where's
fair.
the-
I
spicy.
don't love lemon in this
Really?
plain text.
I'm
Yeah.
okay with
So
it.
like this or like lemon pepper, I'm not really big on.
Mm.
I like
Um,
lemon pepper on
yeah.
like a dry rub. Like a dry rub lemon
like-
pepper.
lemon zest
good.
on things.
Okay.
Like lemon juice and zest on like a salmon or veggies or something like that.
All right,
But
top 3
don't-
things that you like lemon zest on. Go.
Lemons.
veggies-
Lemons.
No. Veggies, fish. I probably use it in
Cheesecake.
like a chicken, maybe a cheesecake. Yeah, I don't know.
No.
I mostly just
Cheesecake.
use it on veggies
Yeah.
and fish. Yeah.
Put a little lemon zest in a cheesecake recipe. It's great.
I freaking suck at cooking or baking, I guess, if we're talking cheesecakes.
Cheesecakes are
It's
hard.
hard.
Anyways,
I
back to
was-
this.
I was raised on lemon pepper. Let me just put it there. So
Okay.
Is that
really, my dad put it on everything. So
lemon?
Interesting.
hamburgers, steaks, yeah.
Really?
So I love lemon, but
All right, Nathan, what do you rate these chippies?
How many
Oh.
lemons?
like I said, I'm digging the flavor. I actually
says
wish it was a
chocolate
little
furiously.
a tad
Digging the
spicier.
flavor.
I wish it was spicier.
I
do
wish it was a little
spicier
tad
as well.
spicier, so I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
Oh,
Damn.
wow, that's high.
It's still
Yeah.
high.
That's pretty high.
It's still pretty high, but
Yeah.
I like the flavor. It doesn't have any Nothing sticks out to me as like, oh, this is weird or this doesn't fit or whatever. Only thing is I just wish it was a little spicier, but I like the lemon. I like the little bit of a kick.
Oh, you got a pepper.
Yeah, this is like a different.
What?
I didn't get that.
Oh, there is a pepper in there. They didn't lie.
Let me see.
It's an actual pepper.
Oh,
It's significantly spicier.
Oh,
yeah, that's going to be spicy.
Bro, I didn't get a pepper.
It's in there, I think.
Oh,
Just
it
eat the
is?
whole thing.
At
That
the
was
very
definitely
bottom.
a pepper skin.
Yep.
Really?
Wow. Okay. Undo the ratings. Redo the ratings.
I want more of that. That was still for eating a pepper directly. That wasn't too spicy. It's got a kick.
I want
but
more of that.
I want more of that in the chip.
I just
If
ate
that
it.
makes
And I
sense. If they
didn't
can
taste
like
anything.
shred that
Yeah,
up a little more and then put it inside the chip.
It's like they threw it in there, one in each bag. It's just like, all right, shake it up. It'll get a little bit of
Exactly.
pepper on there.
It's like when you go to Olive Garden and they only
That's
give you
not
3
how it
olives. Come on, you're Olive Garden. Olive Garden, it's in your name. Don't give me just 3.
That's funny.
So
Are you
hot
sticking
take
with
on
4 out
Olive
of
Garden.
5?
yeah, I'm sticking with 4 out of 5. It's not that
All
that
right.
little pepper in there was a nice little cherry on top, but it's not gonna change my rating.
Not gonna change the rating, so it's a pretty crappy cherry if you ask Nathan. All right, Anica, how many chips do you give this out of 5?
I'll give it a 2. I wanted to give it a 2.5 to be nicer because Nathan rated it so high. But then I tried
Wow.
the freaking.
You don't have to
Everyone's
do that.
different. It's okay.
I tried the pepper thing and it didn't taste like anything.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
Strong palate.
Yeah.
no,
I like
no.
it.
Strong palate.
Do you eat a lot of spicy food at home or?
I started eating more spicy over the past few years. So I don't know when someone says it's spicy, I'm like, I don't know what that means. Because everyone's levels are so different. They're like
That's
different.
very true.
Mhm.
Very, very true.
I know. Some people think pepper is spicy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 out of 5.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Hey,
I'm giving it
There
a
it is.
2.5 out of 5. I feel like it's a very mid chip. I would like a little bit more spice. Yeah, maybe the spice. Too much lemon. I've been saying that a lot, but I'm going to keep saying it. Too much lemon.
Too much lemon.
if life hands you lemons,
Overall, chip
don't put it on
like
these
chips.
You
Chip
put it in the
texture
chips.
and structure is good. Chip form, good chip form. But
yeah.
The quality
everything
of
else,
the latest product.
quality chip. Yes. If somebody were to ask me what brand of chip do you think this is, I would say Lay's. So that's how I know brand consistency with the chip.
There we go.
But everything else mid. So 2.5.
Yeah, I would agree. I think 2.5 is about where I'm at. I think it's a good chip. I don't love the lemon. It's not too much lemon, but I don't love it. It's an inconsistent bite, which I don't like. Sometimes I felt like I got more like barbecue-y flavor. Mostly it was lemon. There was just like the idea of chicken, I guess.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was even supposed to be a part
Yeah,
of
I
it.
know.
Yeah, exactly.
There wasn't
It was
much
just like
chicken feet in mine.
It's
Maybe
a nice
there's an actual
idea.
chicken foot in mine.
The pepper, yeah, it was like, this is so processed. Why couldn't you just process it better? Like, so yeah, I think 2.5 is good. Like, it's not as bad as I thought it was originally. Like, I could eat the bag
Agreed.
and be like pretty happy with it. It definitely doesn't beat shrimp trips. I don't know where you get off, Nathan. That's
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
It's a
Go back. I
controversial
don't know what
take.
I rated shrimp chips, but I bet it was about a 3.
man, that
You know what? You're about a 3.
Whoa!
Out of 3. Out of 3.
Nope.
Oh, there we
All
go.
What?
Shrimp.
I'm not here for that. I'm not here for that level of cheese. I'm not controlling the
Yay!
soundboard anymore. You know what I'm going to do the next episode? I'm going to rig up my own soundboard. We're going to have competing soundboards.
I'm here for that. I'm
right,
going to upload a bunch more sounds.
Well,
Come over
well,
here.
Anica, thank you so much for hanging out with us, for trying this Chinese Lay's product, and most importantly, for telling your story and for being just so open and a wonderful guest. One more time for the folks at home, where can people find you on the Intergrams?
On the Instagrams. On Instagram. Anica F_J. Anica is ANICA F_J. That's where you can find me.
On the Intergrams. And also, what's your Enneagram? No,
Oh.
I'm just kidding.
No, some of my friends are really into that.
Oh, really?
But I actually don't know mine.
I don't know mine
Set me
either,
up
and I feel like
to not have it.
yeah, I feel like,
I don't know mine either.
Christians got like super into the Enneagram, and I was like,
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, just like
That's interesting.
they were like
Interesting.
very horny for the Enneagram, and I was like,
I don't
I'm
even know
not
what you guys
about
are talking
this.
about.
It's a personality
Personality.
quiz from like the
Yeah, yeah.
70s or something. And
Oh,
it got like
70s?
resurfaced.
Oh, you mean like
No way.
I think it's pretty old, and then it like I don't know if it
Oh,
got
wow.
like rebranded or whatever, but it resurfaced, and I don't know.
you're
Don't
talking
quote
about
me
the
on it, but-
personality traits, like the INFJ, that stuff?
No,
That's a
Myers-Briggs.
different one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It's a
it's not-
similar but different.
Similar.
not
but-
Myers-
Myers-Briggs,
I
but it's the same concept.
Same, but different.
Same
You know
thing,
how
but
like the
different.
DISC and Myers-Briggs
Yeah.
and Strengths Finders and all of it, BuzzFeed, all of BuzzFeed, it's all the same.
Enneagram.
All of BuzzFeed.
Yeah. Anyways, you can, if you want to hang out with us and ask us what our Enneagrams are, you can do so at Janchi Show on all the social platforms. You can send us an email to janchishow@gmail.com. Leave us a voicemail. Tell us what your Enneagram is at 972-677-8867. If you head over to janchishow.com/support, you can find all the ways to support the show. Hang out with Nathan on the Facebook after party. Hang out with me on the Janchi Show subreddit. And I think that is it. You can find me at KJ Relke, wherever I want to be found on the internet.
You can find me at NNoWalk on Instagram
I was just gonna stare into the camera until you went.
until I
I
talked.
was not gonna
That
go.
was like a
Go.
staring contest. Who was going to go
going
from
last.
next?
And you can find me at Patrick in the World wherever I want to be found on the Intergrams. Anica, thank you so much again for sharing. And I forgot I'm controlling the soundboard. So
Yep.
for everybody out there listening, until next time, Janchi.
Janchi.
Hey.
Hey-o.